Hello and welcome to day 5 of the Cryptid road trip, which is actually the Mothman Festival and Dark Tower. So I figured I'll show off my deck and my strategy before the tournament actually starts, and then I'll try and poke around the festival a little bit. Because there are a few things I want to try and get, like a poster of the event, and a t-shirt, and then anything else that stands out to me. Alright, I got a little area to put down my cards. And along with my strategy, I have some rules that I want to keep in mind while playing. So let's just start off with what I am going for. I'm trying to do this with one hand, so I'm trying to not dump out all my cards all over my car. So I have 3 GB Wendigos, like I mentioned, I think yesterday. And then I have the 3 different Wendigos, adult Wendigos. And then I think I have 3 Chibi Salem's Witches to then get out Sarah Good. And those are pretty much my my main force. And then as backup, I have 3 Napa Robos, or Rebos. And then I also have Power Up Red to go on my Napas, because I have 4 Black Masses. And I believe this is the card that the whole tournament is going to be focused around, because of the rule that you can sacrifice any amount of beasties and you draw 4. So you can sacrifice 1, 2, all the way up to any number. So I would plan on sacrificing my Chibi Wendigo to then be destroyed, which then summons one of the adults, preferably the native Wendigo, because he hits really hard. And then for my Salem or Chibi Salem Witches to then kill her and pay 1 aura to then take her out. And if I have, let's say, Sarah's out and a Chibi Witch is out, I would have them attack and then play Black Mass to then kill her first. So then she's no longer in the arena, but she's in the limbo. And then kill the witch, the Chibi Witch, to then bring back Sarah Good, awaken, so then she can attack again. And similarly with my Wendigos, I would preferably be attacking first with them, and then playing Black Mass to then kill the baby, and then resummon my big native Wendigo from the arena to the arena, awaken, so then he can attack again. And then I have to remember to bring back my Chibi Wendigo once per turn from all the graveyards, wherever he would end up. I also have Hook, just because of the Black Mass. So if my opponent gets a lot of benefits from that, I can pop him out and also get benefits from that. I also have Eternal House Visit, just to try and bring back something important. Maybe I lost all my witches, or all my adult Wendigos are gone, so then I can't summon into more babies. Because although I have all 3 Wendigos, I was kind of on the fence about this Halloween one, just because he only hits for 20. But he does cost 1 to bring out, so it's kind of like an extra lifeline to continue bringing out the babies. And then I brought along New Year Same Shenanigans, as well as New Year's New Beginnings. Just because I might have a small amount of cards in my hand, and I could get a big refresher. And then hopefully, if I keep using Black Mass over and over again, I'll eventually draw this card. So when I have a bunch of cards in my hand and my opponent plays this card, then I can play that card and nullify that for me. But then I could also maybe spring Shanahook when that happens. So then I draw 7 cards, and my opponent has to discard all their cards and then draw 7. So hopefully that goes down. So I think that's pretty much my whole deck as to strategy wise. So then here comes a few more extra tidbits. So typically you would have your draw pile here, and then you would play your auras along the bottom, and then you have your discard piles just over here to the side. And then I typically play my beasties like up and over here, and then I play my artifacts kind of just over here. But because of the Stickman, I imagine a lot of people are going to bring him along just to be annoying. I originally was going to bring him, but I wanted to get my deck down to 40, and just having him in there, the Stickman in there, up to 5, and then you can have some other guys to really just destroy any beastie you want by having them attack the Stickman. So I would still have my decks where they are, because that's kind of specified in the playmats. But I would play like maybe an aura up there, maybe another one down here, maybe an artifact over here, and a beastie over there, and a beastie over there, just to try and keep all my stuff far apart. Obviously, if you have the Stickman, you can just play him to touch these two. So that's not, this is just kind of a small example, but I would play all my cards just spread out as possible to avoid the Stickman. And I don't see him being like a winning strategy, I just see him being more like a nuisance. And then rule 2, so all here is my main spell book. And then I have like 3 Nappas in here, but in my archive I have 2 Nappas, and I have 2... where did they go? Oh no. Hopefully I can get that back. I have 2 Lightnings the Bottles in my archive, and then 3 in my spellbook. So between each round I would switch out at least 2 Nappas and then 2 bottles, with 2 in my deck, just to make it look like I've been switching stuff out. Just so that my opponent can't really see what I'm doing, and they can't expect what's going to happen, even though it's probably going to be the same thing. Then I have some extra cards in here, like putting Bloodsucking on Nappa, giving him Bloodlust, and adding the Blood Grimoire, just to try and do lots of damage and then heal that on me. I also have All Hallows Eve, which is going to be an interesting thing that I don't really know how it's going to go, because either your graveyards are going to be completely empty or pretty full, and if it's full then this is super good, but it does cost a bit to bring out. And I've been practicing a few rounds on my own, and I would typically win like by a long shot by like turn 5. And speaking of turns, I don't want to get to turn 9, i.e. I don't want my opponent to have 9 auras, 9 dark auras, because then he can bring out Death, and that's, or the Grim Reaper, and that's not super good for me. And then people are going to splash in some Spirit, and they're pretty good if you get the ball rolling, but that's if you get the ball rolling. So if I can spot that and stop it early, then they're pretty much done for. So if they bring out Reaper's Crown to start generating Spirit Aura, then I will target that immediately just to shut them down. Another thing is do not do overkill. So if you're gonna win, just win with what you have, like already shown, and don't reveal more of your hand to your opponent. That's something I like to do, just to slam dunk them into the ground, but I have to kind of hold back on that. Another rule that I don't know how well this is going to go, or how important it's going to be, but don't fear the Jersey Devil, meaning whenever someone screams in the tournament hall to summon him, just stay calm, just ignore it. Don't let it jump scare you, because then you're going to lose focus on what you're doing and your match. For me, I kind of tune out everything around me to the point where I can barely hear my opponent because I'm so focused on what's happening. So I don't think that's going to be a major problem for me. Another thing that might be kind of play by play is to not target my opponent's big guys, like their Wendigos or Sarah Goods, because that's going to waste my strong attacks on them, and they're just going to be resummoned next turn. So it's just better to do damage to my opponent as opposed to their monsters. And I think that's it. As for fourth wall items, I have fake blood wrapped in duct tape so it doesn't explode for the blood grimoire to heal myself. I have a skull mask for Wendigo, so then he has, I think it gives him first strike and unblockable. That might be wrong, but I also spackled some of the blood on the mask, then I'm technically wearing the blood for if I want to bring in the gargoyle for a bit cheaper than playing a flame aura. And then I have bananas for my nappas, so then they do double damage against my opponent. And I brought 5 bananas, 1 for each nappa, even though you can only claim 1. But I think they will appreciate each having their own banana and then work better for me. So I'm going to put my spellbook together as listed on my submission online. And then I'll see what I do next. Alright, got it all set up and all organized. So hopefully everything works as I think it works. Because I didn't have time to read all the erratas with all the planning for my trip. So hopefully that all works out well. Because I think this is quite a good deck. I think it's going to do well.
The next morning.
Hi, I'm here on day 2 of the Mothman Festival. After the tournament. I did not do well at all. I did not win a single round, and I only won matches by my opponent not showing up. A lot of close games came down to the wire, but surprisingly, my opponent won every time, so statistically that's pretty impressive, but I still had lots of fun. I did learn a few things in that the one strategy I had where I would have Chibi Wendigo and Wendigo, I would have them attack, and then I would use Black Mass and kill the baby, and then do Black Mass thing, and then howl to bring out the adult. And you can't bring out someone from the arena back into the arena awakened, because the arena is not defined in anywhere. So it's just your graveyards, your hand, or your spellbook. So when I learned that from the local tournament to qualify, that was wrong. So what you should have done is attack with both, so then they're tired, then do Black Mass, kill them both, so now the adult's in the graveyard with the baby, draw for Black Mass, then howl to get the adult out, and then you can attack with him, and then since you have a Wendigo on the field, you can then pay to bring him back. And I think another, so those were like the one mistake I made in the first match, but then I learned that so that I did it properly for the rest of the tournament. Because I was just kind of testing that out to really make sure that was that. And obviously there's no undue in competitive play, so I had to live with that choice. But when there was like my opponent won by a long shot, it all came down to them having this one card, and I obviously looked through all the dark cards, and I read this, and I heard its name be mentioned online on the Discord, and I read it, and like, that does not sound useful. If anyone has this card in their deck, they're dumb for having it. It is the Sentry Brock's Devil promo, in that his attack lets you kill any number of your own monsters. And I read this as destroy any of your monsters to have them deal 10 more damage, instead of thinking of the effect of destroying your own monsters, meaning that you could have your, say you just have these two out, which are pretty cheap, they only cost 1 energy. You have him attack, just to be tired. Then you have him attack, and then you kill the baby, and then you bring out the adult. And then you could also have the adult out and the baby, have them both attack, then have him attack, doing +10 for each monster you kill both the Wendigos, and then since you killed the baby, you bring out the adult, then he attacks again. So that's pretty much doubling your damage output for just 1 energy, instead of the Black Mass, which costs 2. And then one other thing that I think would be pretty nice to have was this card called Sinister Shadow, in that you can double, let's say I have two Nappas, double any monster for cost of 1. So I have this guy out, and now I play Sinister Shadow, I now have 4. Then I play Sinister Shadow again, I now have 8. And it just keeps multiplying, and you can have up to 4 of these. But if I were to have, let's say, the adult Wendigo and Sentry Box Devil and Chibi Wendigo, I could have up to 4 of these guys. So let's say I have just him, and that's another Sentry Box. I could do Sinister Shadow on him and make 4, and then do it again, have 8, and I can pretty much do that loop from the first go of killing both these guys, and then bringing out the adult, and yeah, just like a big damage loop right there. Because I was pretty happy I got my spellbook down to 40, so to get maybe like 2 of these, maybe 3, and then 4 of these guys, I think I would have taken out this card, because I have 2 of these, and they weren't super useful, because I had these in to get out my chibi witches from the graveyards. But it does cost a little bit more to play the witches instead of the Wendigos, and that little bit more setup or energy use is quite detrimental. Where are my witches? There they are. And I have, it's getting messy. I think I had 3 chibi witches and then 1 Zero Good. So I would have taken out those 4 or I would have subbed out these in my archive for Sentry Box Devils, just to have them in my main deck. Because just that extra cost of paying 1 energy to then play the adult after the baby dies kind of throws everything off. Whereas the Wendigo, you get that for free. So yeah, I think I still had a really good deck, but it didn't help me. But to add to the cards I've gotten on my journey so far from the 3 Target promos, I also got the Dark Tower promos. So now whenever I do a Dark deck, these are pretty good cards to have. Well, just got a fancy aura card. And I just so happened to be at the right place at the right time and got a Immortal Workshop partner Earth Aura, as well as their Mothman Festival card. Because I didn't have one of these, so I could add that to my promo binder. And there's still 2 more promos to get, because these were in the Dark Tower, and they were giving out 2 cards in the actual festival. So everyone in the tournament missed out on those, and so they're going to give them out today at noon. So I think I'm just going to hang out at the booth for an hour before, just to make sure I get them. But I only think you get 1 at random, and then you can't get back in line. So hopefully I can get one. And another good thing about not being in the tournament for the second day is I can at least enjoy the festival now. But as you can see, it is raining now. It's about 9 o'clock, so maybe it'll clear up eventually. Or I can just stand in the rain, make sure I get my Mothman Festival promos. But yeah, I think in the meantime I'm gonna clean up my car a little bit, organize my cards, and I'll head out. One other thing I forgot to mention for the video is that yesterday when I was talking to people, I was kind of giving them some like strategy about like what I was doing, then I learned about like kind of like what they were doing. And every time I mentioned this, that when I would sub out every time between matches for 2 lightnings and 2 nappas for my main deck, for 2 lightnings and 2 nappas for my my archive or side deck, they were really impressed with that strategy because it actually did kind of pay off, where my opponent was thinking I was switching out my main focus of my deck, but in reality I wasn't. So they were really impressed, and I think they're going to start doing that now as a bit of a mind game. Because one time I started to shuffle, and then my opponent was doing their side decking, and then I stopped, and then I did that, and then they pulled out even more cards to switch out because they thought I was switching up my deck. Because I had I don't think I'm going to find them, but I had my blood rubies, and they thought I switched those out, so they took out their absorb auras, and I kept those in, obviously, so then I gotta keep these out for longer. But if you have like 13 cards in your side deck, you can always put in some extra aura and then swap out your aura to make it look like you're swapping stuff out. So then you play little mind games on your opponents, so they don't really know what to expect. So you just have to remember to actually swap them out, even though you're not actually doing anything. And then lastly, I got one of the artists to sign a Mothman card for the Mothman Festival. That's nice.
Here, in your history books, is often referred to as Lord Dunsmore's War. He crossed stream on upriver and never made it to the battle, so I'm not sure how he gets to claim it. George Washington, for his services in the Revolutionary War, was given 200,000 acres of land here up the Kanawha Valley, and he surveyed much of the land through here. Daniel Boone would have been through here, Simon Kenton, all those important frontiersmen of the day were through here. So it's said that George Washington stood at the point where the rivers come together and told his secretary, "This is such a pleasant point," and that's how we became Point Pleasant. So, fast forward to 1940s now, and oh wait a minute, let me back up a smidgen. All the way at the end of Main Street is Towindowee State Park. It is the smallest state park in West Virginia, but it's also the site of where the battle took place, so most historic, I believe. There's a small cabin there, at least it looks small from the outside. Has anybody been down that way? A few of you. Did you go in?
No.
Oh. It looks little from the outside, but it's actually a 3-story mansion. It was built by Walter and Catherine Newman in 1796. 3-story home, plus it has a basement with an indoor kitchen. So pretty fancy for 1796. They operated a tavern and an inn out of the home. And for 50 cents, you could spend the night, get your meal, and have your horse fed too. So not a bad deal, huh? I tell people nowadays, if they come by horseback, I'll honor that deal. One man told me, he said, well, I'm driving a Mustang, does that count? I'm like, no. But my name is Darla, and I have lived in Mason County my entire life. Excuse me. So we'll go forward now to 1940s. Mason County was huge in World War II efforts. Within a 5-mile radius, we had 4 businesses that contributed to World War II efforts. We had the Malibu Iron Plant, we had the Naval Yard, the Marietta Manufacturing Company that produced LST boats. Excuse me. Got tickled. As a matter of fact, we had a man, I was talking to a young man who told me there were still blueprints in the office of the Marietta main office. So, you know, don't tell me that, because now I want to see them. So if you're ever going to go somewhere where it says no trespassing, always carry an empty dog lead with you. That way you can say, I'm just looking for my little dog. But just a little helpful tip. Helpful tip there. Tip, I can't talk. So my husband and I went, and there was indeed a building, I mean, just blueprints scattered everywhere, still in pristine condition. We did go back and get permission to go in and get them, and they will be in our new river museum once it gets open, and also to other museums. That there's enough that we're going to be able to share, so pretty cool. And then of course we also had the West Virginia Ordnance Works. That is what we refer to now as the TNT area. It was an 8,000-acre facility producing 500,000 pounds of TNT per day. That's a lot. They started construction there in 1942. They were up and running in 1943. So roughly 15 to 18 months, they built 100 igloos. They built over 30 man-made ponds. They built a north power plant, a south power plant. They had their own railway put in. They had, they're called aqueducts. They sort of look like Stonehenge that the trains ran under. And they also had a dock put in over the river for shipping things out. So we were quite the industry here. Of course, 15 to 18 months again, about the same time it took to build it. 1945 rolls around, the war's over. What do you do with your new state-of-the-art military facility? You dig a hole and you push everything in it. Yeah, so chemicals, I've been told, trucks, anything that wasn't usable or they didn't want anymore, they pushed it in the ground. So, you know, kind of crazy. So, of course, then by the 70s, we had some fishermen up there who noticed a red sludge coming up from the ponds. Of course, once it was checked, it was contamination due to the things that had been put into the ground. And we have been part of a super EPA cleanup ever since, still ongoing today. In those man-made ponds, the ponds were built in case of fire in one of the bunkers during World War II. They had their own water source to put it out. You'd never get water from town to there, you know, just might as well spit on it. You couldn't get enough up there. After the first Mothman sighting, all local schools, elementary schools, I know for sure, were no longer allowed to have outside recess. You had something big enough to span the width of a car, you had something big enough to pick up a child. Now, if there are any educators on here, you know the importance of recess. You got to get those little darlings outside to burn off some of that energy for a while. I need to find an older school teacher to find out how many years, or not years, how long that went on. I'm going to guess the entire school year, what was left of it. So 1966, we've got Roger and Linda Scarberry and Steve and Mary Mallett. Now, locals like to say they were just teenagers out running amok, partying, that kind of thing. Yeah, they were young, but they were already married and living out on their own. On your right, Village Pizza, home of the Mothman Pizza, very good. Then Linda Scarberry worked at Tiny's Drive-In, which is a small building here now. It suffered wind damage this spring and they haven't got it all back together yet. Then Roger and Linda lived just up 30th Street here. Jeff Walmsley and his family also lived up 30th Street and were neighbors. Jeff says he could remember as, you know, a young boy, Roger being out there beating around on that vehicle and, you know, really the engine was much better than the bodywork of the car at the time. But Jeff can remember that. So they live right there and Linda works right there. They're chased back into town. Where do they go? They went to the diner. Yeah. Instead of going home, they rushed to Tiny's, beaten on the door shortly after 11 o'clock, and Mr. Northam was the manager there. He asked the guy that's in there cleaning up, he says, well, who in the world's pounding on the door? And the employee said, well, it's Linda. So they opened the door and let her in, and they explained what has happened. It was Mr. Northam who called for the sheriff's department to come and take their statements. Why didn't they go straight home? My thoughts are because even though they were already married, they were looking for an adult. They needed a grown-up, you know, to help them. So that's my opinion on that. But Steve and Mary Mallett are still married. They still live right here in Point Pleasant. Roger and Linda later divorced and he moved to Tennessee. Of the four of those, Linda was the only one that would continue to talk about it. As a matter of fact, she and Mary, after they seen it that night, the next day they were treated for shock. So I'm not sure what all that entails, but I'm sure you can't just walk into the ER and say, I have shock. You know, I have shock. So, and Linda had never told that to Jeff in their conversations. So once Jeff learned of that, he called her and he said, were you all treated for shock? And she's like, yeah, we were. She said it was just, we could not get it out of our minds. So, as we come up through here on your left, you're going to notice the power stacks across the river. Many people ask, and they are across the river, they're on the Ohio side. People often ask if those are nuclear plants. They are not. They are coal-burning plants. They are in the top 10 sites for terrorist attack. You take out these plants, New York, D.C., all down the eastern seaboard, everybody loses their electric. So I can imagine the amount of time it would take to get something like that back together. And let's face it, we're all hooked on the electric now. So 2010, there was a large explosion in TNT. So the explosion happens, you know, it's all reported and everything. We have the FBI, the AFT, every three-letter agency you can put together embarked up here. Because was this a possible terrorist attack that missed its target? Thankfully, it was not. It was simply, you can still you can still lease out these bunkers today. Individuals. And it was a local person who had leased it out and had, as the article said, unstable military supplies. That's a pretty big umbrella, I think, you know. And the sky was orange-red for probably close to a week up here. And it's all, I mean, it's like 7 miles up here. But when you think, you know, you're in Point Pleasant, you're still seeing how red the sky is up here. That's kind of tells you what kind of fire we had up there. Of course, that man fled town immediately, knowing that, you know, he was going to be in big trouble. He did have to come back though, because like 2 weeks later, the semi-trailer he had in his yard also exploded. So, yeah. I'm not sure if he had to serve any time for that, but I know he was fined heftily. You know, I talked to our local fire chief this spring in town, and he said after that explosion, and I had no idea about this, he said the state fire marshals set up camp for 8 months after. Now, I don't know why they had to stay up here, you know, after they knew what it was, but for 8 months they were still up here. Our fire chief's a big old boy. He local, you know, he's hunted the woods, he's, you know, knows all the sounds out around here and everything. He came out and spent a couple nights with them. He said, I have no desire to go back in there. You know, he said I've heard things in there that I've never heard before. With that being said, I had a group up here, and we were walking down to one of the bunkers, and everything all of a sudden went dead silent. I mean, there wasn't a cricket, a bird, nothing. And we all stopped immediately, and it was like, did y'all hear that? We don't hear anything. If you look out the right here, this is Fairground Roads. This was the main entrance to the West Virginia Ordnance Works. Look how straight the road is. This is where they were drag racing. So they went in this way. They had to loop around the way that we're going to go in. I would love to be able to take the exact path that they took, but the road that they cut back across is no longer open. So if you ever decide to come back on your own, go on past Fairground Road. It's probably, what, half a mile up here to the next one. Roughly a half a mile around these little S-curves. And on your right, you're going to see a little, what used to be a tree farm. And you'll turn right onto Potters Creek Road. Now the bunkers that are up here, there's only one row of them that is open for people to go through. The rest of them are still leased out. Many people believe that it's still military that has them leased out, but we do know that locals have them too. And I have not introduced Elmer yet. I get to talking and I forget about my friend Elmer, who we've had so much fun with this weekend, because yesterday on our next to last tour, Elmer left 3 people behind. Not his fault. They ventured off and went on to another bunker. And the people that were sitting back there with them knew the people didn't get back on. Wouldn't you have thought they'd had sense enough to stand up and come tell me? You know, or flag me down or something, you know. They didn't tell us until we got back to town. Oh my God. Needless to say, that lady was not happy. But it was her fault, because I said, well, did you all go to a different bunker? Yes. I said, stay with your group. So make sure you know the people sitting around you so we don't leave anybody behind. Over in this clump of trees, you see the brick home that's over there? That's where our local lived that had the unstable military supplies. I had a guy tell me yesterday that he was told it was just residue that was in there. After you go in one of the bunkers, I'll show you when you get back on the bunker that exploded and let you be your own judge of that. But we'll give Elmer time to introduce himself. We also, his alter ego that leaves people behind is Evil Earl.
Yes, please don't let Evil Earl come out today. So, my name is Elmer Foster. I've been studying the phenomenon and whatnot since 1999. I've been up here since the very first Mothman Festival and really haven't left. I live about 30 miles away from here, so I'm not really a local, but I am pretty close to it. Other than that, anything paranormal that you want to ask, go ahead and ask, be it John Gill's books, or Coleman's books, or anybody else's books. Just don't ask me about Psychic Mothman, because you'll probably be laughed out of here, okay?
Now what?
Psychic Mothman, or never. Yeah, no.
reserves. As we come up through here on the right, you're going to start to notice roads that shoot off that way. When this was set up, it was set up in a grid pattern. So the men had access to get to all the different bunkers. Down each one of these little access roads, there are bunkers, like right down through here. These, at one time, all connected back over onto the road that they were drag racing on. Many of them have now been closed off and shut. We've been told, or I've been told, not to go near those. Most of they were all locked up, and many of them have cameras on them that if you're messing around it, that somebody will probably quickly be there to escort you out. During the year of the explosion, Jeff Walmsley had a band of people up here doing the tours, and we know all of our city police, county police, and state police. You know, we're a town of less than 4,500, so everybody knows everybody in Point Pleasant. The state trooper stopped him and asked him what he was doing, and Jeff said, well, we're just doing our tours, and going to one of the bunkers. And he said, well, don't go in them. Do not get out of your vehicle. Well, Jeff kind of chuckled, thought the man was just giving him a hard time, you know. And, you know, poker face straight, he said, do not get out of that vehicle. You will be arrested on federal trespassing charges. So Jeff was like, really? You know, he's still not sure about it. But as you get up here and once you cross the guardrail, start looking across the pond to see if you can locate the igloos, bunkers, on the other side of the pond. Elmer will be taking, he's killing me. He'll be taking you up to one of the bunkers. Like I said, don't wander off, so we don't leave anybody behind. And when you go in the bunker, think about there being more, 100 of these bunkers, as well as all the other stuff that was put in. I'd say just let them all in. I would. Yep. Alright, so I am going to trust Elmer to take you and bring you back safely. Maybe. I do trust you.
Yeah, right now it's definitely gonna wait till everybody gets caught up here. Yeah, they do everything from coon hunting, duck hunting.
There's a lot more down this way. Oh yeah. We're not. We're still
Alright guys, so listen up. Notice over here at the top, there's a hole right there. This one that is, it doesn't explode in here. It doesn't blow the top, it just ventilates out. If you notice, there's a water reason around this. The reason why it is, if it wasn't faulty, like where it is now, it would go right down, and there's a trench line along the walls. So that way, the water would get on down instead of the actual equipment that would be in here, be it ammunition, PvP, guns, whatever. But if you notice now that, corrosion over time, you get little water spots here and there. So with that being said, the walls are about 4 to 5 foot thick. The reason why that is, if you have an explosion inside, it doesn't go out, it'll go up because the dome is thinner than the wall is. The reason why it is because obviously you don't want to change the action a hole in the wall or nerve. With that being said, the explosion that happened about 10 degrees down, it lifted the dome up, down, and it broke off. So whenever it fell, like this half was caved in, and this half was still good. So keep that in mind. Just a heads up to let you guys know something. Like your cameras, phones, whatever electronics you have in here will die. I'm not just telling you that to be for a saying or anything like that. It's actually true. I had a lady a few years ago. I told everybody that this, and they was like, oh well, it's kind of like flat that in the songs, you do a little chorus thing, whatever. And I was like, that's serious. She handed me her camera and she said, can you take a picture for me? I was like, yeah, sure. I said, but the camera died. I'm sorry. She was just like, okay, whatever, And so she handed the camera, I go take a picture, she died. I handed it back to her and I was like, here you go. And she goes, did you get the picture? I was like, no, it died. And she goes, well, do you know how to use it? And I looked at her and said, yeah, I'm pretty sure I know how to use the camera. And she goes to turn it on and it doesn't turn back on. And she goes, it only happens one other place now that we're in the board's house. So that being said, there has been reports of satanic rituals and stuff like that out here. Not in recent years, but like from the 60s up until early 2000s, there's been sightings of people in clothes and whatever. Some of the igloos actually have like a big pentagram in the middle. Somebody asked me a few groups earlier that they asked me, they was like, well, was it anybody seen or is it just rumors? And I looked at her and I'm not going into detail about it myself, but I looked at her and I said, I've seen it. I know they have been out here. Alright, so with that being said, I'm not going to tell you what they did because the children are around, but yeah,
People I heard some chanting, so I came up over here this way and somebody had a cat.
Oh. Nothing like that. So with that being said, I'll let you guys get a couple pictures in real quick and we'll head back to the bus.
So after being in there, I hope everybody appreciates the effort that the men put in building all of these structures up here. Also, after seeing the one that exploded, it can definitely make you realize the power and the force that it took to blow one of those up. People often ask if I believe that these, the people who had the sightings, had it just been the high school football team that was reporting it, I would not have been a believer. The reports, though, were from people of all walks of life, all age. So if it wasn't just a group of friends, if we went back to town today and made up some big elaborate story, would we be able to keep it straight 55 years later? No. I'm going to embellish it, you're going to embellish it. It's not going to turn out the same. When Jeff would bring Linda up here, driving around, hoping to spark a memory that she may have forgot, he would every now and then repeat something that she had told him, but he would tweak it just a little bit. And immediately she would say, "Oh, Jeff, I didn't tell you that. This is how I told you." So, it's easy to embellish your stories. She never did. There is a book there in the museum called Behind the Red Eyes, and this is a book that Jeff sat down with the people and wrote it word for word how their statement was. No embellishments to it. So it's really interesting for people to give their first-hand account. We know there's 100 or so written statements. Jeff and I suspect that there's at least 100 to 200 that were never reported. I host this down at Twindley a couple days a week during the summer. And always ask people where they're from and if the Mothman brought them to our area. And I was talking to a man this summer who lived over in Gallia County, which is just across the river from us, bordering county. And he didn't really tell me how old he was, but he was young. He and his family lived over on 544 there in Gallia County. And he said, we was talking about the windows in the house. He said, we had windows like that in the old house we used to live in. He said, but my sister, they were the old wood windows with like 6 panes in each window. He said, but my sister's room had 3 of them together. So she had a big window in her room. She had already gone to bed for the night. Everybody else was up in the living room. All of a sudden, she left out a scream. Of course, Dad immediately rushes to the bedroom to see what's going on. Whatever was outside her window, when it took off, had enough force with its pressure with its wings that it shattered all of those windows. So I said, did you all report that? And he said, probably not. He said, we did clean up glass for days and days, and my sister would no longer sleep in that room. Of course, I was like, I need to talk to your sister. And sadly, she had passed away, so I did not get her version of what all had happened. I was 3 at the time of the sightings. My brothers were 12 and 15 years older than me. So they were at the prime age to be up here on the search for Frankenstein. And that's pretty much what it turned out to be up here. All young men, and my old men too, but there was a time when everybody, a lot of them drove pickup trucks, had the gun rack in the back window, and it was loaded and ready to go. They even drove to school that way. Left their vehicles unlocked, nothing was thought of it. So I wish I could unlock the part of my 3-year-old brain that could remember what my mother was saying on the phone to her friends and my dad and my brothers. I was never afraid of the Easter Bunny or Santa, but all of a sudden I have to have my bed looked under. My bedroom door has to be left open, and the light in my closet has to be turned on. It took being an adult to realize what triggered that, and it was the Mothman. And whatever it was my mother was saying, I was picking up on it. And a little embarrassed to say that that went on through my high school years. Having to sleep with the lights, the closet locked and on. And so if it hadn't been for beer and boys, I'd probably still have my lights on. So after the war ended, Mother Nature reclaimed her land. You're out of city jurisdiction. State police detachment would have been at least an hour away. And the county didn't come up unless there was something reported that they needed to come check out. This became a place where you just came out, drove around, hung out, learned how to drive learned how to drive. My dad had me behind the wheel about 9, driving in the yard. By the time I was 11, I was up here and found out there were two more years on the column. So, learned how to do clutch and all that stuff really well. Of course, then after you got your driver's license at 16, you came back up and learned how to park. And you're getting laughter on this. I'll have to tell the story on myself too. Linda Strawberry. She's deceased. So right here, they would have raced in. They were drag racing this way. They would have kept somebody stopped right here to make sure the traffic didn't come the direction that we're going in now. So to avoid head-on collisions, they would have had somebody stopped right there. So they had to take the route the way we just came out. They looped around, and I'll show you the road that they came back in on when we get up here. But I was going to tell you a story of like you. Which is long gone. My girlfriend had a little Chevette, and it was a little 4-speed. Had a good little snow on, and we decided we needed to learn how to do donuts. Because who doesn't need to know how to do a donut, right? So the bank beside the Dairy Queen, we stopped. That was a local hangout for kids. We stopped and picked up a couple male friends and came up. They were going to teach us how to do donuts. Well, they were as dumb as we were. The only thing we learned how to do was how to tear the clutch out of the car. So, of course, my friend then had to tell her daddy what had happened. And when he came up to get the car, somebody had gone in after we had left. Big bonfire, beer cans everywhere. So, of course, we were accused of being at a party. We didn't get to use the car for a long time. So, I mean, this many years later, I saw him in November of last year, and I still apologized to him. I said, I swear to you, we were not at a party. So coming up on your left is the West Virginia State Farm Museum. If you're ever around again and have time to check it out, it's definitely worth visiting. These buildings were brought in from around Mason County and placed in here as a little village. They're decorated, period, correct, everything. And as you look over to, well, you can't see it just yet. As you look over to your right, you're going to see our fair stage. Little white stage back there. And the North Power Plant set directly behind it. So, as a kid, I didn't, or even a young adult, I really didn't know the significance that we played in World War II about everything up here. We always called it the birdhouse, and that's where the Birdman was seen. As we get up here to the next school road, I want you to look up the lane, and you'll see it drops off over a hill up there. This was the first sighting of the Mothman here in Mason County. Just right up that way. And as you look over to your left is the West Virginia State Farm Museum. If you're ever around again and have time to check it out, it's definitely worth visiting. The Mothman and it was standing in the middle of the road, and this is the road they came back in on. When they popped over that little knoll, Linda said, "Oh, be careful, there's someone in the road." And you're 2 to 2.5 weeks after Halloween, they think it's just somebody up here pulling a prank. So they really didn't think a whole lot about it. They got a little closer, and the headlights illuminated the eyes. She said from there, it walked to the powerhouse. It said it had a hobble of a walk. Of course, Roger and Steve still convinced that it's probably somebody pulling a prank. They wanted to go back and see who it was and show them they couldn't be scared type deal. But luckily they listened to the girls and left. Got a fella rolled up there in that hay bale. So as they're coming out through here, when Jeff had Linda up here, he was looking for just the facts. I would have loved to have come along and had that, what y'all saying, conversation, What was the conversation in the car and, the little gossipy area of it. But unfortunately, I did not attend on those. Of course, there were no buildings up here at the time. It was a very dark, narrow 2-lane road. And as they turned to go back down toward Point Pleasant, there was a large billboard over here in the field on your left, just about where the first hay bale closest to the road lays. It was the old billboards, the old rickety wooden ones that had the lamps that shone up, As they get here, Linda says, "Look, there it is again." And it was from there she told Jeff that it took flight. It did not have to run and flap its wings to take off. It simply opened its wings and up it went. Went down that big Chevy Bel Air. I'm sure Linda was sitting sideways like this, turned around talking to Steve and Mary in the back. Of course, nobody had to wear a seatbelt back then. Most people cut their seatbelts out, actually. So, as they're looking around, they're unable to see anything down through here. Trees would have been a little closer to the road, but they've got to cut off the power lines down. So they wasn't able to see anything. As they pop over this little knoll, they get down here where the road opens up. There's a dental sign. It was about that dental sign that Linda turned back around to look forward. She was going to look out the front of the windshield, and as she did, as she gets turned around, she realizes by the passenger window, side window, that there's a leg. She told Jeff it was not a bird leg, it was a muscular man's leg. So now they know it's above them. Jeff said, "What was the wingspan?" And she wasn't sure of the width of it, but she said from time to time, whenever it would flap its wings, and what she meant by that was it didn't flap like a bird, it was swish, and then a little later swish. Makes me think of what they show a pterodactyl would be like now. And from time to time, whenever it would take its swish, both wingtips were hitting the sides of the car door, hitting it hard enough that it scratched the paint. So Roger was upset that his paint was damaged, even though it wasn't a show car. So of course they're doing up to 90 miles an hour down through here, and it's staying with them. And then I'm going to let Elmer tell you about when it leaves them and what it's doing.
So here in a minute, we're going to see a white fence on your right side, but we're going to go about 2 weeks beforehand in a little town called Salem, West Virginia. So one night, a farmer out in Salem heard his dog carrying on outside, and it was just going crazy. So.
All right, dog. You be cool. There's spider webs.
outside and looks up. And has anybody ever seen the movie Close Encounters?
Yeah.
Okay, do you remember the mountain scene with all the lights in the sky?
Yeah.
All right, that's kind of like how he described it.
Without
All right.
music.
Yeah, without the music. So he walks outside, he sees all these lights, the dog breaks loose, and he's running down the road, and he disappears. Well, the farmer calls the police, he makes a report, and, he, tells them that his dog abandoned and disappears, right? So, fast forward 2 weeks later, the Scarberries are flying down the road here, and, at this point, they think they've lost the Mothman, right? So they're going through, they're like, oh my gosh, what was that? Will we see it again? Whatever. So here in a second, right as we pass this cluster of trees, they take this curve right here, and along this fence line, they see it again, but he's circling a dead dog. So they see it, he takes off right here at the silo. So he raises up, takes off, he flies to the left, and he wraps around going back to the birdhouse. So the sheriff remembers, that they said that he was searching the dead dog the last time they saw him. So he comes up, finds the dog, he sees he has a name tag. And guess what the name tag said? Bandit. So you did a little research and found out that it was the same dog from Salem, Mississippi.
My brother had a friend stop by our house a couple summers ago, and he asked what I was doing nowadays, and I was filling him in on everything I do, and he said I do the Mothman tours. He said, darling, you know that was a bunch of nonsense. And I said, well, Gary, now why do you say that? He said they were speeding coming into town, and the police were behind them about to give them a ticket. I said, no, wait a minute. They went to Tiny's, and they called the sheriff's department to come up. So why would they have to call the sheriff's department if there was a deputy already chasing them? So his story made no sense at all, and in the words of Barney Fife, I told him to nip it in the bud. So, of course, now we've got Mary Heyer, who is our local reporter. She's, investigating and printing all these stories of the sightings. Mary Heyer lived in the little white house here on the fourth house on your right with the white wheelchair ramp. She lived here. This housing development over here was not here at that time. So now come in the men in black. They sat outside over here watching her house. They show up at her office telling her she has nothing to report. Why are you doing this? You shouldn't be doing this. Now, a small town like this, and I'm not saying that men don't take care of women today, but in the 60s, a lot of times the woman was the damsel in distress, and, men were not going to take anybody messing around and aggravating or harassing them. So it makes me wonder what jurisdiction did the men in black have that our local police department did nothing about them bothering her. Of course, John Kill is interested in what's going on here. He makes several trips down to investigate. He and Mary kind of team up together and, comparing notes and investigating together. It was during the time that they were friends that she confided in him about a dream she kept having. She said, it just cannot shake the dreadful feeling that comes with this dream. She said, it's just packages in water floating, and I can't shake the terrible feeling that's with it. Well, 13 months to the day after we had our bridge, or after the Mothman was sighted, we had our bridge disaster. There were definitely packages floating in the water after the disaster. It was 10 days before Christmas and 5 o'clock rush hour traffic. So my uncle worked about 12 miles south on the Ohio River at the Lockstone dams. When they got word down there that the bridge had fallen, they got on the watercraft they had there and came upriver. realizing the destruction that they were about to see, they were scooping packages out of the water in hope, thinking they were going to be able to return them to the ones that they belonged to. So my Uncle Joe was a tough ex-Marine, served on Iwo Jima, was there when the flag was raised. Always kind of a cold-hearted man. Until the day he died, he was unable to throw away the blanket that he had scooped out of the water. He never used it, but he said that was somebody's gift that was never able to be given. So I found out after I learned that story that the group did have a heart. I'm going to pass it over to Earl. Elmer for a minute.
Oh, good Earl. Good man. I love Steve. He's good. Anyway, so, a lot of things happen after Mothman sightings and all that, kind of like it's Twilight Zone moment. So, back in 1980, a farmer had heard his horses carry on outside. He walked outside to see a pack of humongous dogs circling his horse, and he saw one was about ready to attack it. Whenever it tried to attack the horse, the farmer shot it and killed it. So, the wildlife reserves came out, they took it, and they said that there was pictures of the creature in one of the newspapers, but the paw prints were bigger than a bear print. So just keep that in mind also. Also, there was, a few years ago, I think it was like 2012, around that area, there was a woman who was getting a glass of water out of her kitchen. She looked outside her window and saw a dog-like creature walking on its hind legs down the railroad tracks. So there's countless accounts of UFO sightings, creature sightings, and everything in Point Pleasant up until this day. So with that being said, Point Pleasant is still active up until, every so often you hear something going on. And I can bet you 9 chances out of 10, in about 3 days we'll have another Mothman sighting, but we'll see about that one.
So as we turn to head back down Main Street, we like going down the historical district. Most of the homes down through here are on the National Historical Registry, so it's pretty cool. We have one block that's very active with ghosts. I'll point those homes out to you. I assume most of you believe in ghosts. So on your left, the big white house with the blue roof. The ghost in there prefers the room that has the piano in it. Had a friend who was cat sitting for them while they were out of town. She had several encounters there with the ghost in the piano room. On your right, the house that takes up the whole block, their ghost prefers the stairway that goes from the kitchen upstairs, which would have once been the servants' stairway. They see a lady on there frequently. The White House right here on your left, don't really have a ghost story about it, but pretty cool. It used to be a funeral home, and in the basement, in the flooring, are the concrete gutters where they drain the bodies and then just went right out into your sewer. So we've learned a lot over the years, haven't we? The house here, the pretty green one, the top right-hand corner. The bedroom up there is decorated in leopard, and the ghost prefers that one. The lady there usually keeps some little twinkly lights on for it. Now the Silver Bridge, you see the train bridge over here. It was about a block south of this bridge. The bridge was built in 1928. Opening day ceremony has the mayor on a horse and like an old Model T car there with it. By the time the 60s roll around, this bridge was not designed to have the weight of coal trucks, log trucks, and those heavy muscle cars that we love today on it. Mothman was said to have been seen on it the day before. I feel like it was a predictor of something bad to happen, as winged creatures have been seen throughout history before bad things happen. Native Americans referred to them as thunderbirds. It would be seen before harsh winters or bad times. Out around Illinois, there is the Piasol bird. There's a large drawing or carving under a cliff, and they have no idea how that would have got there. But the story goes right along with pretty much the Mothman, that it was something there to predict. So hope everybody enjoyed. In the words of George Washington, may you always think of business at pleasant point. Thank you guys.
So I managed to find a hotel room after the festival, surprisingly, because they were all booked up for like an hour radius around Point Pleasant. I'm going to be a little quieter than normal because I think these walls are kind of thin, and I'm going to be staying here for the next few days. So on my trips, I'm going to be looping back around to Point Pleasant. And today I managed to get a Mothman pizza right before the pizzeria closed. And on the way over, this has been taunting me because I'm kind of hungry. That's the back. Oh, so there he is. The Mothman as a pizza. So that's my dinner for tonight. And I might not eat all of it, so it's going to be a little leftover for tomorrow. Gotta say, that was probably the best pizza I've ever had. Like, just like the mix of different ingredients, but also just the like enjoyment you get from seeing like a picture on your pizza. So I think whenever I order pizza, I'm gonna have the special instructions, make it look like a cryptid, because it proves the taste. But had a super fun time at the festival and got to talk to a bunch of people, meet new people, see old people. And like I was hoping, I managed to get both the Mothman Festival promos, and then I got, oh, it's stuck. Yeah, come out. There you go. The Terra signed by Afton. That's really cool. It even says Mothman Fest 23. Then I also met up with Andy and some of the team, and he gave me a handful of caster packs. Just super nice. So I guess I'll see what's inside these. Okay, so I opened up all of them and I haven't looked inside yet. So let's see what I got. And I got a All Hallows Eve. This was one I had in my side deck because it sounded pretty good, but I never ended up using it. That's pretty neat. And boom, Death Beam. Also a really good one to have. I mean, this whole mini set's all good dark cards to have for the Dark Tower. Boom. Ooh, this one was one I haven't seen, or I haven't encountered this during the tournament. Call of the Raven Mocker. Come to think of it, I didn't even see any Raven Mockers in the tournament. And Black Mass. Everyone had Black Mass because it was the most important card. It just mattered how you used it. Because I didn't know that so you automatically draw or bookmark 4 no matter how many BCs you kill, and you could also do the other effects. So I guess if you went up to 7, you would draw 8, but a lot of people didn't know about that, so it kind of messed them up early on, and they learned from people who actually knew about that, because it was a bit confusing in the rules. But I don't think that would have made a super big difference for me. Well, actually, I guess the first 2 are pretty good, because then you can steal someone else's Wendigo, and then you're constantly healing, or something's constantly gaining health, which would then prevent it from dying. And the final one is another black mass. So that's pretty nice cards. And I almost forgot because I got so excited by the pizza and the cards and to have a hotel room that I almost forgot the tradition of check for bed bugs. Nothing there. What's that? What is that? Oh, it's the zipper. Never seen that before. I guess that's so it doesn't rip off. And put that back. And now the other side. And no bed bugs. That's a good sign. And then no dead bodies under the bed because I got that nice solid frame so you can't put anything under the beds. But yep, so that's been the Mothman Festival. I didn't go see the Mothman Museum yet, so now in the days to come, no one's there, so I have the whole museum to myself, hopefully. But it's pretty likely that that's the case. Didn't do the statue either, because there's a super long line, but now that the festival's over, there's gonna be no line, and I can stay with him as long as I want. But the Mothman Museum opens at 10, and I'm going to go to another museum early in the morning that opens at 9. That's just kind of the inverse of being ideal. So I might have to try and fit the Mothman Museum in at some point where it's most convenient. And I think that's going to be Tuesday. So I'm just going to go early at like 8 to then go to the museum we're going to go to tomorrow morning. But I think that's all I have to say for now. So thanks for watching. Bye.